October 23rd, ladies and gentlemen. This pod's gonna be about hauntings and possessions. What possesses people. We're gonna talk about Daisy Fuentes, the Amityville horror. And the father had just killed his 4 kids, or his family, his wife, and had one of his family members in the trunk. We're gonna talk about what possesses people to do that on this spooky podcast. And I'm going to tell you guys about 3 incidents that I had dealing with ghosts or whatever was going on. You figure it out. Thanks for tuning in. Oh, wow. I had to do this one during the day. This episode was too scary. I do not like doing episodes like this in the dark in my room. So I'm actually down the street from the Sacramento House of Horrors. If you guys look up the story, Daisy Fuentes, she was a nice looking elderly lady that had travelers come and stay with her on her house on 15th Street and F Street, right across the street from Sandra D's. People still to this day go by there and visit there and want to talk to her or want to see the house and all that. She had, killed her travelers, poisoned them, did whatever to kill them, buried them in her own backyard, and took their SSI checks and was cashing them in, spending them, until she had got caught up one day. I think a missing family member a family member that was missing, someone in their family that was supposed to be staying with her, had started talking to a detective, and then they started investigating, and then, Lord almighty, they discovered and uncovered bodies in their backyard and had the streets blocked off. I believe this was in the 80s, and still to this day, the house is still there. I got the creeps walking past the lady the other day. I walked past her and I was going to ask her, I asked her if this was a good neighborhood to trick or treat. She had said there's not too many kids in this neighborhood. So I sat there and told her, I was like, yeah, I looked this house up online, and in this area that said it was the scariest place to trick or treat because of what happened here. And so she had a look on her face like, oh yeah, she's used to that. I guess someone had told me from my school that the paranormal investigators, the ghost show or whatever online did a story there. So, I got to see that episode. Go ahead and look that episode up. I don't know if this was my own mind telling me this though or something, whatever, but after I got done talking to her and I left the block, I walked down at least 1.5 blocks and I just felt like a weird feeling over me, like, oh my God, I don't know what, I'm going to explain this. Was it my mind just because I know what happened there and this and that? Was it just spooky? Like, I don't know. It was just scary talking to her. I haven't felt that scared to talk to someone. It was like I was speaking in front of a whole crowd or something, or about to get on my hands and knees and ask someone to mirror me. It was like scary. I just had the jitterbugs all through me. And then after 2 blocks I got away, everything was back to normal again. But it was just weird. It's like a black cloud just took over me. And I wonder what's going on. I wonder what happened with this guy. He just recently killed his own family in Roseville. What possessed him to do that? There was someone that killed their own family before because he was jealous of their daughters. It was in his religion for him to marry his daughters out, and his daughters left him, and he killed his daughters or something. It was on a show. I don't know what the full story is about this. This man, he killed his family and even turned himself in, and he had one of his family members in the trunk. So what possesses someone that just takes over that? Was it greed, money, or just are they alone and they're easy for demonic possession or some entity to enter their mind which controls them? When people say they hear voices in their head, do they actually hear people talking to them, or is it just a feeling? Like, sometimes weird feelings. Like when I was younger and stuff, I used to have weird feelings. Like if I didn't walk by and touch something bad was going to happen to me. Like if I didn't touch a trash can or something, or if I seen trash on the ground, I'd walk by it. A feeling would come to me like something bad's going to happen to me if I don't put that trash in the trash can or something. It's weird. And they say there's a certain diagnosis for that, but no voices ever told me to kill people or do this and that. So I'm wondering, other people, thank God I have the Lord in my life, or thank Yah I have the Lord in my life, but other people, they're just easy to take advantage over. Let's see what this prosecutor says on this little clip right now.
This is the first time we see the suspect accused of murdering 4 people. Shankar Hanggood was escorted into the courtroom to face the judge for the first time. His hands were handcuffed. He was wearing a green safety vest, typically used when a suspect is on suicide watch. He walked in staring at the ground, only looked up when the judge asked to confirm his name. You could see he looked disheveled, very pensive, but aware of what was going on. He replied to the judge calmly when asked a question. Hanggood is facing 4 counts of murder. He refused a court-appointed attorney more than once. The public defender's office spoke to him privately before he agreed to a public defender. During the hearing, the prosecutor's office said they had not decided on whether they will seek the death penalty. After that, the public defender's office asked to push back the arraignment for October 25th. The judge agreed. Outside the courthouse, we spoke to the public defender, who has now classified this as a capital case.
That's sad for the family how someone just switches like that. That is sad. Oh, man. You guys heard of Amityville whorehouse. If you don't, watch some episodes in the movie because it's in Long Island, New York. And they say that, researchers say that the house and some of the houses around there were built over an Indian burial site. I mean, that's just plain out disrespectful. You know, people just want to cram buildings and houses, and they wonder why stuff like this happens. But was it one of the native spirits, or was it just an entity, or was a person possessed? Some people say houses aren't haunted, that people are. But on November 13th, 1974, 23-year-old Ronald DeFeo Jr. slaughtered 6 members of his family at 112 Ocean Avenue in the village of Amityville, New York. Now, 1 year later, newlyweds George and Kathy Lutz, the Lutz family, they bought the murderer's house a year after. Are you kidding me? And they moved out within 2 months because they started experiencing paranormal activity and weird stuff going on in that house. And you guys can look up the interviews with the guy. Now, this Ronald DeFeo Jr., I mean, he slaughtered his own family. He was the kid, like, it's just, you know, what possessed him to do that? Was he going through a lot? I mean, if you wanted to get back at someone, obviously you would go and, if you were getting abused by your parents or something, you'd go get the parents back. You wouldn't go and slaughter your own sisters and brothers and, you know, people in your family. They said that he was just possessed. He said that he heard voices in his head. You know, after he was in jail cell during interviews, he was talking normal, like he didn't know what happened. Like, did someone just take control of him? I mean, that house looks scary too. I mean, with the 2 eyes on the side of the 2 eye windows on the side of the house, on the back of the house, where the porch is at and all that. I mean, I don't care how cheap this house is, I would never want to go back there and buy it. They say in 2016 this house lowered to $600,000 to $500,000, but it was first sold for $1.45 million in 2012. It just kept going down and down. No one wants to buy it. Obviously, that means either make it a Winchester Mystery House and have an attraction, or tear it all down and make an Indian burial site and say in remembrance of these natives right here or something. You know, you don't have to cram everything over Indian burial sites, but that movie gave me nightmares. That movie was scary to watch. I mean, it still is scary nowadays to watch. They had the Amityville book came out in 1977. You can look that up. This Let's guy did a lot of interviews too. He's talking about his swarm of flies were in there, and ooze was creeping out the walls. He heard voices say, "Get out, get out." I mean, I believe in these ghost incidents. I'm gonna tell you about some experience I had. Now, you guys can try to figure this out, because this is kind of. It still tells you for a while I didn't want to live by myself ever. I always had a roommate or a girlfriend or someone living with me, because I can't stand living by myself because of this. But let's see, in Seaside, probably 1990, 1991, 2, 3, or 4, somewhere around there, on my street, Mariposa. This was a good, I mean, I woke up in the middle of the night. I was in my bed. Of course, it was during winter time, but I woke up out of nowhere. I don't remember dreaming or nothing, but I looked at my doorway, and in the doorway, kind of outside my doorway, I seen a pretty lady. She was a beautiful lady, and she was glowing, rocking in a chair, and it just happened so fast that I looked, and she smiled at me and gave me the beautiful smile ever, and she was rocking in the chair, and I just got so scared I put the blankets over me. I wish I would have stayed there and see how long I could stare at her, or what else would have happened, but I immediately put the blankets over my head. My heart was pounding. I was underneath my blankets for like 20 minutes. Like, I was so scared. And I was trying to make sure. That's why I was wide awake. So I know this wasn't no dream or me just hallucinating. I wasn't doing no drugs back then or nothing to make me hallucinate, nothing. There's no excuse for this. And I put my... finally, I took the blankets off, and then everything was dark, but she was gone. And then I went, and I remember I slept in my brother's room. I was, like, scared. He woke up in the morning, he's like, oh, what are you doing in my room? I was like, I didn't want to tell him. I was like, man, I need to stay warm. It's cold in my room. But I told my mom just 2 years ago when I visited back what I saw that night, what happened. That house was basically a one-story house before it was added on, and I was in the main. There was only a one-bedroom house, and I was in the main bedroom. The other room, my brother's room, was added on, and then the second story was added on. So I wondered, I'm gonna go back and ask her what did the lady look like that used to have the house that she bought the house from. I'm just curious. Now, the second time was in Carmichael, in Sacramento, California. Carmichael, it was apartments on Engle Road in Fair Oaks, and they used to be a hotel. So I was, I was in there one night with my baby's mom, and all of a sudden, right in front of our very eyes, just one night, the curtains opened, like the curtains went and pulled a little bit, like 2 feet, maybe, or a foot and a half. There's no way. And I went and checked it after. I just looked up, and I was just like, what the hell just happened? I was so scared. I went and checked the curtains for tension, or trying to explain, like, what happened. Could it have just been too tight and just loosened up? And no, someone had to pull that. No one else was in the house. And that house, we were so scared that we went and spent the night at our neighbor's house next door all night and didn't come back to our house during the day. That house felt kind of like scary. Like when we went back in there, it felt like dark, like a dark cloud went over me, And I was also having experiences in bed of hearing, the little swishy pants. I'd hear that when I was laying down on my back, and all of a sudden I'd hear them, and they'd get closer and closer, and then it would come right up to me, like someone was coming right up to me to do something. It's like they was pushing me down on the bed. Like I was usually on my back on the bed. I hated sleeping on my back, and I had to try to fight that force off me. It was like someone was choking me or someone was standing over me and would not let me up. And I would just like sit there, and if I didn't wake up and fight out of my sleep, one time I just gave up and was like, am I gonna die? And all of a sudden I was like, and it was hard to turn, and I got up out of my sleep and I turned over and I stopped sleeping on my back from then. And it was just I didn't like that house, man. It was a scary incident. Third and final time so far was probably 2007 or 8 or 6, around that time when I was living downtown across the street from the jail on the 4th floor of that building. No one had told me that someone had died in the room before I got there, because there was other elderly died. It was an elderly place, elderly and disabled, so there was a lot of elderly that died. But I always kept hearing this tap, 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 tap on the floor, tap, tap, tap. I thought it was the water pipes and all that. One time it got so bad it got underneath my feet, like it was tapping right underneath my feet, knowing where I'm standing. And I went and complained to my manager. She was like, you could be haunted. And that's when she told me the story. And I'm like, what the heck? I was like, man, I started having people come over and live with me and all that. I was so scared. One night I got this old TV from across the street from the old police department. It was an old looking TV, and I think this TV was possessed or haunted or something. I gotta hurry up, we're kind of on 1 minute. But this TV, I brought it to my house, and one night, this TV, it was plugged in though, but it turned on by itself, full blast, in the middle of the night, woke me and my son up. I was so scared. My coward butt was like, Maurice, go turn the TV off. I went with him, I had him walk with me. I was so scared, like, I didn't know what poltergeist was gonna happen or what, so I walked from the living room to the room, and I was pissed, and I turned it off. I went and turned on the light. What the hell is going on? I checked it. I turned the knob. You had to have force to turn it on, but it was still plugged in. Boom, 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 boom. After I put my son to sleep, I heard booming on my door. Like 3 minutes later when we just got back to sleep. I was so pissed. I said, that's it. I woke up. I blacked out. I opened my door, and I choked whoever was at my door. I was choking him. It took him a while to wake up out of it. He's like, my wife's in trouble. My wife's in trouble. It was my neighbor. His wife was overdosing on meth and foaming at the mouth in the house, and he wanted me to call the ambulance. I was so pissed off because... And now this entity was messing with my kids. I was like, no more. Now you're not going to do this. So I got pissed. I blacked out and choked him. And I woke up after choking, like, oh, shoot, I'm sorry. And I went and called the ambulance. It was just 3 weird experiences I had, that I figured I'd tell right now in the daytime so I won't be scared. But 10, 9, 8, thank you for tuning in. Have a safe trick-or-treat Halloween. We might do one more episode. Stay tuned for a very good episode coming up, too, on podcast.